Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about why milk prices are rising and why it is good for farmers. We also take a quick look at the results of the Gujarat municipal elections. But first, we talk about the political crisis in Puducherry. On Monday, 3 months before its next elections, the government of Puducherry collapsed. In the Union Territory, the ruling party had been formed by an alliance between the Congress and the DMK. And the collapse happened after 7 MLAs in the alliance resigned from their position within a month and led to them losing the majority. This collapse now means that the Congress party is not in power in any of the southern states or union territories. In this segment, we talk to Arun Janardhanan, who has been reporting on this crisis, about how it unfolded, whether it could have been avoided, and what would it mean for the Congress party going forward. And he says that one can actually trace the beginnings of this crisis ever since Kiran Bedi, who has been with the BJP, was appointed the Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry in May 2016. Arun says that during the past 4 years, Bedi played her role more as a self-stylized cop than as a governor.
Her style of functioning was all about interfering with the day-to-day affairs of the elected government. And she used to disrupt so many government programs or plans, questioning different aspects of the executions, protocols. So there was a very visible tussle between the government, the elected government, and the office of the lieutenant governor in the last 4 years. So everyone knew that this was coming, because when we say that Governor Bedi was disrupting or she was interfering with the elected government, of course there were serious problems, because there were many instances when it was seemingly undermining the democratic powers or rights of an elected government.
Arun says that Kiran Bedi would often intervene in every small matter related to the governance, and her actions often derailed administrative hierarchies. But apart from this, Bedi is also credited for streamlining the administration and making the government operations transparent, and spoiling the dreams of corrupt politicians.
So in that way, there is a section that would say that Bedi was doing her job, going by the rule book. And politically, it was exactly the job she was assigned to do, not letting the government to function in a very smooth manner. At the same time, we can also say that her style of functioning helped Puducherry governance or administrative systems. Or there are instances where we can say that she made the system transparent. We can say that jokingly, one of the leaders was telling me yesterday that she not only disrupted the functioning of Congress government, but she also disrupted corruption. So in that way, she made the ruling party, the ruling MLAs and ministers, really tired from doing their jobs politically and in the governance.
So these, he says, were the early signs of the political crisis that has now come to a head. The tussle between the Chief Minister V. Narayanaswamy and Kiran Bedi had been there since the beginning.
There were many heated arguments, exchange of words between these two power centers. And this had also affected the administrative hierarchy in the Union Territory. The senior most bureaucrats were always nervous about whether they should listen to the CM or the governor. So there were chaos, serious chaos. And the latest political development also had come from this background. Even if we cannot say that it was who collapsed the government or who worked behind it, but definitely the kind of environment she created there, the unrest and the uncertainty, the lack of freedom, for good or bad, all that contributed to this crisis.
The current crisis and its political developments, of course, started when the ruling alliance of the Congress and DMK started losing MLAs.
The first MLA was disqualified in July 2020 for anti-party activities. And there were rumors for at least 4 or 5 months about the BJP's attempt to poach some MLAs from the Congress camp or DMK camp.
And here it is important to note that the main opposition in the Union Territory is an alliance between the BJP, AIA-DMK and the NR Congress.
The first Congress MLA left the camp. He was the second minister in the cabinet who was considered next to CM, Mr. Namashivaya, the PWD minister. So that happened in early January. In fact, on a day when Rahul Gandhi was in Tamil Nadu for his first round road show, then there was one more MLA left along with Mr. Namashivaya. And in the last 1 week, the remaining people also have left. So this was coming and this was happening in a different way. It was not exactly the way we have seen elsewhere because we have seen similar kind of collapsing or falling governments in the recent past. But it was not as thrilling as in other places. It was relatively happening in a very silent way, very peaceful way, without any resorts or without any spectacle events. But MLAs have been going to the speaker and submitting their resignations.
When talking about the reason why these MLAs were resigning, a senior bureaucrat told Arun that some of the leaders realized that being part of the Congress or the DMK wouldn't help them in the long run because the governor, at least for the next 4 years, would be controlled by Delhi. The other important thing to note is that when the MLAs began to resign, the central government removed Kiran Bedi from her position. And the bureaucrat that we mentioned earlier said that Bedi was actually removed because she had been against corruption and demanded transparency, and that during the upcoming election season, she would have played as a tough person for the BJP as well. But talking about the crisis, Arun says that Puducherry as a union territory in some ways makes this kind of crisis more easily possible.
Because Pondicherry is a very small place, a union territory where an MLA may be compared to an average corporation councillor in Chennai city, for the fact that the number of people in a constituency may be somewhere between 20,000 to 40,000, and it is largely based on personal, very interpersonal connections, networks. The caste and community plays a lot. Many political characters of Tamil Nadu also reflect in Puducherry. So a very smaller place where you can see. I mean, people used to say about the former chief minister of NR Congress, who used to come in bicycle. Even yesterday when we were waiting for the floaters, we have seen ministers and MLAs coming in Innovas as well as two-wheelers. So that is the kind of a place. Puducherry is a very small place where everyone knows each other, where even in the middle of all these crises, no one will be surprised if the opposition leader and the CM are partying together. I mean, they are having a casual chat or sharing a lighter moment. So that is the nature of Puducherry politics. So all these factors made the job easier for whoever engineered it.
The question that comes to mind is that could this have been stopped? Did Chief Minister Narayanaswamy resist or protest Kiran Bedi enough in the way her actions deserved?
Maybe we can say that Mr. Narayanaswamy's reactions, his protests, were all largely ritualistic, customary. He never did what Kejriwal did to his governor in Delhi at the peak of controversies there. But of course, there were letters, there were complaints, there were press statements, but nothing more than that. And if the question is specifically about whether there was any option or did Congress take effort to prevent this crisis, we really can't say that Congress did their role.
Arun recounts that yesterday, a senior Congress leader, a representative of the All India Congress Committee, was pointing out that the topmost BJP leaders in the state were talking with the MLAs who resigned. And while Rahul Gandhi also spoke to them via video conferencing and met them last week, Arun says that the top Congress leadership wasn't really active in trying to prevent this crisis from happening.
There was no high-profile leader from Delhi visited Puducherry during the last 4 or 5 years. And of course, as we discussed, CM Narayanaswamy was also, we can say that he was taking a very cold response or reactions in his approach. It is all about a very enterprising party in Delhi fighting another national party, and their fight in Delhi was being extended to Puducherry also. Obviously, for the kind of active roles BJP played, there were many reasons for, more reasons for the Congress MLAs to join BJP.
And even though they might have reasons to join the BJP, it is key to note that right now none of them have. Plus, there is no proof that the BJP tried to poach them or offer them any rewards. Now, with this crisis, like mentioned earlier, the Congress is no longer ruling in any of the southern states. And we would have to wait and see the kind of implications this would have for the party going forward.
If you are looking at the particular crisis that happened in Puducherry, we have seen it in Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Goa, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh. In Rajasthan, it didn't happen. So it is about money power, it is about getting people as per their wish. But definitely it is also about the larger political system where many other external factors matters more than the ideology. So when I asked CM Narayanaswamy yesterday about his opinion about that, because the number two in his cabinet, the man who was considered as a close aide of Narayanaswamy, was the first to desert the Congress camp. He resigned his cabinet post and MLA post last month. So I asked him whether does it mean that there is something seriously wrong with Congress. So Narayanaswamy's reply was that it is not new in politics, that it has been happening. These kind of things have been happening for long, and that nobody can stop the greedy people.
So in that sense, Arun says it is not just the BJP and the charges against it to destroy an elected government, but it is also about the Congress party, which has used these tactics in the past.
I think that is how it largely works. And for the Congress, the leaders in the state level, they admit the fact that there is a larger crisis within the party about taking decisions, the kind of uncertainties, the top leader who is inconsistent in his political activities, sometimes being very active and sometimes going aloof. So it may be depending on the fate of Congress, maybe depending on how Congress is going to make use of this crisis. If the Congress is able to tell people about their claims about how their government was collapsed or sabotaged. So if they can take these arguments to the people, maybe there will be a result. They can claim a victimhood in that way. So it is all about whether they are capable to do that through their campaigns. So we'll have to wait and see whether what is going to happen next.
For the time being, Arun says the Union Territory has no ruling government and it would be now under the governor's rule.
The opposition, NR Congress, AIDMK and BJP, they may be having a consultation each other. That may be happening now. But I am hearing that it is very unlikely that they will form a government because the election is hardly 2 months away, or maybe the elections are supposed to happen by the end of April itself. So Puducherry elections may be held under the governor, means the central leadership, central government machinery in the coming elections.
Milk. All across India, dairies have reported an increase in milk prices over the past couple of months. And while global factors are at play here, the COVID-19 crisis has a lot to do with it. Because milk prices don't really increase during this time. In this segment, we talk to Parthasarathy Biswas, who reports on agriculture for the Indian Express, about why this is happening and why it is actually good for farmers. And he starts by explaining how milk prices work in India.
Depending on the season, animals either increase or reduce during what is called as the from the month of September and continues till April. The reason for this increase in milk production is simple. During this time, which coincides with after the monsoon, availability of water and green fodder is naturally high. Thus, the animals are well fed and they do not suffer from any liquid stress, any moisture stress or water stress. That's why they can increase their lactation. So if the milk is available plenty, then prices naturally drop. And dairies normally either they cut corners or pay their producers a bit less than they would be getting.
But all this changes after the month of April, when the summer season sets in. And he says that this is the time when milk production naturally drops in animals. It is because during summers, the easy availability of water and green something called silage, which is a replacement for the green fodder.
Now, while silage helps in keeping the animals alive, but it does not have the effect that fresh green fodder has on animals. That is, lactation naturally drops. However, in the summer months, there is an increase in in demand of dairy products like dahi, lassi, ice cream, and because of which prices of milk increases because dairies would want to corner as much as liquid milk possible from the farmers. So this is the cycle in the dairy industry which vacillates between flush and lean period, and where the farmers normally see their earnings go down in the flush period when they have plenty of milk to sell, and farmers get an increased price of milk during the lean period when they don't have that much amount of milk to sell.
So just to recap, summers is when there's less milk being produced, but people want it more, so the prices go up. And in winters, when production is up, but people don't want milk as much, the prices go down. But this is not what has happened this time. In fact, it didn't even happen during the last winter season.
This is the second season in running when the whole cycle has come topsy-turvy. If you look at the fiscal year 2019-20, in the month of February-March, there was an increase in milk prices. That was because the flush season had not set in. And the reason for that would have been the drought in Maharashtra in the previous year, that is the calendar year 2019 had seen a drought followed by flash floods in Maharashtra, and because of which animals were either underfed or could not get the right amount of nutrients, and thus milk production had gone down. So at the start of the year 2020, animals in Maharashtra were not producing the amount of milk they normally produce during a flush season. Officially, the dairy owners and the dairy farmers had said there was a flush, either a delayed flush or absent flush that year. Thus, farmers were earning quite well. But from March onwards, once the COVID lockdown started happening, there was a drastic dip in the demand of milk.
During this time, he says, places like canteens, restaurants, sweet shops, and offices were closed. The milk demand reduced by almost 30 to 40%. The Horeca sector, that is the hotel, restaurant, and catering, that uses a lot of milk, had completely collapsed.
This sector, which accounts for a lot of milk in form of pedas, your ice creams, your ghee, celebrations were all but absent. That's why the dairies all of a sudden during what was otherwise a crisis period faced a double yummy. The milk they were collecting from the farmers itself became excess. They did not have the markets to sell their produce. That's why they started slashing the prices of farmers. Thus in Maharashtra, in the month of March, when farmers were getting as high as 27-28 rupees for milk with 3.5% fat and 8.5% solid not fat, all of a sudden started receiving as low prices as low as 17 or 18 rupees. Now, faced with economic distress, because per day per animal normally farmers pay around 200 rupees, and they have to have a base price of at least 25 rupees to sustain them. They're faced with a sudden dip in procurement prices from the dairies. They either started underfeeding their animals or they reduced their herd by selling off their animals in losses.
And the other thing to note here is that animals are living creatures. He says that if they are not given the right amount of nutrients, the right amount of food and water, then their milk production is invariably affected.
Thus, this year, when the COVID-related lockdown started easing up a bit, with the hotels opening up, with the offices opening up, your roadside tea shops opening up, with again a demand coming up in the market, the dairies find that most of the milk which they had anticipated is not present in the market. This is because either the animals have been sold or they have been so underfed that they could not conceive. So calving did not happen. Because the calving did not happen, they could not produce milk during this flush period, and that's why there is a great supply-demand mismatch. And we must realize that animals are biological systems. It's not an electric bulb that you can switch on or switch off. These animals have to be fed properly with the right amount of green fodder, the right amount of supplements, with the right amount of protein mixture, so that they can produce 10 to 12 liters of milk per day. That is the average yield in most of the milk producing states.
But he says that now, during the flush season, when they should be producing more milk, majority of the animals are producing much lesser milk because they have been fed less. Parthasarthi says that many farmers have resorted to downsizing their herd.
For example, this farmer we spoke to in Sangli used to maintain a herd of 10 animals, and his daily milk collection was almost around 100 liters per day. But since April last year, he has downsized, and at present he has just 4 animals, and his daily milk production has come down to 40 liters. Now, it will take for some time for him to get back to the 100 liters because he has to invest in animals. And once you invest in an animal, it has to go through its first pregnancy, it has to come to its first lactation. That takes almost a year's time. So, for example, in this case, the farmer cannot immediately shell out money to buy a milk animal. He will have to wait for at least 2 or 3 years to get back to the 100 liters production levels that he had before the start of the lockdown. Thus, at this time, when normally milk production increases, most dairies are talking about a dip in their production. Unofficial sources say that there is a production dip of almost 20 to 25% in milk collection in the organized sector, which is reflecting in the high procurement prices. The dairies have started a price war to attract as much milk as possible from the farmers, and that is the reason we see this rise in price of milk.
But this milk price rise, he says, is also affected by international factors and dairy product commodities like skimmed milk powder and white fat, the prices of which are touching new heights every day.
At international prices, the prices have crossed their last 5 years high, and that, of course that is because of the increase in demand and a dip in supply. And in domestic market also the prices are quite high. So dairies who deal with the commodities, they themselves are facing shortage of the raw material with which they can produce the skimmed milk powder or the white butter. That's why they have started. For example, in Maharashtra, the dairies have taken a decision not to pay their farmers anything lesser than 29 rupees. Some dairies are already paying above 30 rupees. So this supply-demand mismatch has started a price war, and this will continue if things go normal. Of course, uncertainty in the market in regards to another lockdown, in regards to another demand destruction or anything can play a part in it. But as of now, there seems to be good days in the offing for the dairy farmers.
And this situation, while being good for dairy farmers, isn't too bad for consumers either. And he says that this is because dairies right now have decided to not pass on the prices to the consumers. Instead, they have decided to cut corners with dealers.
See, the dairy has got a number of dealers. So the milk which comes from the dairy has to pass through 3-4 middlemen before it reaches our houses. So the commission of those dealers would be compromised a bit, but the end consumer is not going to face the music immediately. But if the milk situation continues to be grim, if there is going to be another if the shortage continues, maybe many dairies would be forced to increase their selling price. As of now, most of the dairies are selling milk at 42 to 43 to 44, 45 rupees depending on the brand. That might see a correction in the days to come if the milk situation does not improve.
Parthasarthi also points out that while getting more price for milk is good for the farmers, the extra money isn't exactly a windfall for them. But it has come as a relief after the crisis that farmers have faced during the COVID-19 crisis.
Imagine they had to invest a lot in their animals, and all of a sudden their earnings had dipped. So in the next few months, hopefully many of them would be able to recover the losses they had encountered during the COVID months, and they would either invest in good animals or they would be increasing their herd and ensuring their milk production goes up.
And next we talk about the results of the Gujarat civic polls. The general elections to the municipal corporations of Ahmedabad, Surat, Vadodara, Rajkot, Jamnagar and Bhavnagar were held on February 21. And the Bharatiya Janata Party has seen a clear majority in all 6 of them. The Delhi-based Aam Aadmi Party had contested in Gujarat for the first time and won 27 seats, all in Surat Municipal Corporation. This has made the party the main opposition in the city. The Congress, meanwhile, did not get a single of the 120 seats in the city where it had gained ground in 2015. The AIMIM, which also fought the civic polls in the state for the first time, contesting for 21 seats in the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, won 7 that were previously with Congress. It is also important to note that the number of Congress seats saw a fall in all the 6 cities. After the results, the Gujarat BJP announced a public function to greet the party workers at its Ahmedabad city headquarters in Kanpur. Union Minister Amit Shah took to Twitter to congratulate the people of Gujarat for reinstilling their faith in the BJP's symbol of development and progress. He said this huge victory was owing to the policies and intent of the BJP. Delhi Chief Minister and AAP Chief Arvind Kejriwal also welcomed the election results and tweeted congratulations to the people of Gujarat for starting a new kind of politics. You were listening to 3 Things by The Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.